It's the middle of October, and it's time for the last harvest. Hello, welcome to Pittsburgh Home Garden. As you can see, I am sweatered up, I'm layered up under this because it is a very brisk 52 degrees here in beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our nights have been dipping down into the low 40s. It seems that fall has come with a vengeance. So either way, it is certainly time for me to do, my last big harvest of, a wonderful summer. And I also would like to talk about, some of my mistakes that I made during the summertime with, different patches of the yard that didn't work out the way that I was hoping. So to kick off this harvest, I want to start with all of the herbs in the yard because the nighttime temperatures have been affecting them the most. And honestly, they should have been out. So we're going to start with this wonderful bed of mint. Honestly, with my mint patch, I couldn't be happier because at the beginning of the season, I actually ripped up probably half of this patch and did very heavy pruning over here just because I wanted to set up my little melon patch. That certainly didn't work out this summer. I barely got 2 melons. They were very small, not enough water. I really believe melons belong in the ground. So that is a big change I will make next year. But I think I am going to put them in the same space because my mint came back, did very well. And the melon patch actually stayed pretty clear of different pests. I'm actually going to try to propagate some of this in some water in the house, just so I have a very fresh mint plant inside my sunroom so I can continue to make very fresh cocktails all over the winter. Now, let's harvest some sunflowers. So many people don't even think about harvesting the seeds from, their mini sunflower heads that they've grown over the summer. But I don't see why. I found myself thinking this last winter when a friend of mine made a salad with sunflower seeds on top. And I was wondering, why don't I collect mine and use them as fancy garnishes, on different things? So, for anybody who is inclined to do so, when your sunflower is completely dried, which I imagine at this point in the season, most are, you're going to want to peel back this kind of fuzzy overlaying of the seeds. I don't really know what this is called, but once you peel that back, you quickly see actually how many sunflower seeds are in just one single head. So about a third of this particular head has been eaten by the birds, but I still probably have, 200 seeds here. You know what I mean? There's just so many of these seeds in every single one of the heads. And then as soon as you peel, all you do is kind of scratch the surface a bit. And here are your sunflowers that you could go on and roast and, make fancy garnishes of or whatever you want to do. Okay, so now it's time to move on to my wonderful lemongrass. Oh my goodness. So after you knock off the large dirt root ball at the bottom, you're going to go on ahead and start to split the individual stems from the lemongrass. And this part right here is actually what you're going to be keeping inside of your refrigerator. Okay, so we are now inside the beautiful greenhouse that has actually been covered for about a week now. It just experienced its first rainstorm and it's actually been keeping up very well. Super happy what's going on in here, especially with the growth that I am seeing. I am pushing a lot of summer plants into the winter, as you can imagine, with this greenhouse. And one of the plants is this very interesting thing called a bitter melon. So all over the greenhouse, I have these beautiful, sexy vines that are strung up all on this very simple trellis system that I set up in the last video. You can check out if you want to see how it was really done. But this fruit right here actually originated in Africa. It's super rich in vitamin C, and it's actually used to treat diabetes. The reason why I'm growing it, though, is because I seen it in a lot of, delicacy type plates, and I figured why not give it a try. It was very crunchy. When eaten raw, it is very bitter right now. But when it's cooked down, it loses some of that bitterness, and it actually provides a bit of bite. And of course, also, it is a very prolific grower. So even though I am pushing all these plants into the summer, I'm already seeing little baby bitter melons already form and start to put on size. So I'm very excited for what this greenhouse has to offer, especially with my heating system that I set up. So now I feel like it's a good time to talk about my eggplants. Although I believe I got great success with the eggplants that I did get, like this big, beautiful baby right here, the one right next to me. I also think I put all these plants in a bit too late in the season, because although there is a great amount of growth with the plants and they did reach, a nice stage of maturity, these plants also didn't put out tons of fruit. So to combat that, I'm actually going to be overwintering my eggplants along with my pepper plants. Please subscribe if you would like to figure out how that very simple process is done. I understand that a lot of people are visual learners, just like myself. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and take my 2 beautiful eggplants. Check these babies out. I mean, that is a picture perfect eggplant. So now here we are at the last bit of cherry tomatoes. This summer has actually crushed with the cherry tomatoes. This bed in particular did a lot better than the bed at the very top of the yard. And I want to say it's because of the animal pressure. Not only were they eating the tomatoes in the other bed, but I feel like they were also just like spreading disease. That bed, it seemed to be dealing with disease all summer, whereas this bed has been super healthy until now. And I mean, even at this point with 40-degree nights, the tops of these things are still pretty green. So I believe what I'm going to do is harvest up the rest of these beautiful cherries, and then I'm going to take a couple suckers, try to root them in some water, and then set them in the greenhouse, because as you can see, I still have tomatoes growing inside the greenhouse, and cherries actually require less sunlight and they grow a bit faster. So maybe these will actually do a bit better than my San Marzanos inside the greenhouse. Okay, now let's talk about my okra. Essentially, I have let every single bit of okra in my garden get way too mature. All of the okra I've eaten over the summer has been about this big, because honestly, if you don't pick your okra every 2 to 3 days, it's going to reach a maturity level, which it's not supposed to hit, apparently. So I think the biggest thing for me is to be grateful. Number one, I love these things. They have all grown to be at least 4.5, 5 feet tall. I mean, for my first year, I'm so happy with how this plant has turned out. But next year, I am going to make sure that I keep this plant a little bit closer to the house, maybe grow it up towards the patio, just so when I'm outside, taking my daily intake of fresh air, that I'll see these plants and maybe be more prone to actually harvesting them when they're young and slimy, apparently how they're supposed to be. But all this okra is going to be frozen and prepared for different stews that are coming during this wintertime. And now it is time for the great pepper harvest. Because looking around, if I'm not pepper daddy, I don't know who is. I might end up doing a little weigh-in of all the peppers, because these babies have grown all season long and have done daddy very well. So we're going to go ahead and start with my very tasteful Shishito peppers. I'm actually going to try to make a purely shishito pepper type of sauce. Just because I believe that this pepper has such a wonderful taste. You know what I'm saying? Also, over here, I have a bit of ginger that I actually forgot about. It was just kind of tucked in between plants. So let's see what this looks like. Well, it seems like the ginger suffered from lack of water, just like a lot of other plants in the yard. Something that I certainly need to get up on for next year. Moving on to the pepper trees. These babies are certainly the last Mohicans of the yard. Looking around, they are the only things that are continuously growing. And I think if I left them out here for another month, they would do okay. But I don't want to take the chance. All these babies need overwintered, but of course they need harvested first. So we're going to start with this wonderful Anaheim pepper, which, I mean, at the very bottom of the plant, I'm pulling off things like this. You know, this thing is tipped over due to the weight of all of these peppers. And although these aren't my favorite stuffing peppers, they are just like very tasty to put inside of different salsas. What I've done with peppers this summer has certainly surpassed anything I had ever done before. I've roasted peppers, I've baked peppers, I've stuffed peppers, I've stir-fried peppers, of course made different salsas. I love all the production. Here we are at what has grown to be my favorite of the pepper trees growing in the yard this year. This is my giant macaroni plant. This baby has been producing all summer long. I've talked about it in several of the harvest videos that I put out in the last couple months. And it's because the growth of this thing is so prolific. And not only is it prolific, it produces monsters like this. I mean, now that is a stuffing pepper if I've ever seen one in my life. Here, right next to a overgrown Anaheim pepper plant, I have a plant that I totally did a disservice to this year. My poor Serrano plant. I am actually a huge fan of Serrano peppers because they are that nice medium ground of heat. Not as hot as a jalapeno, but certainly not as mild as like a sweet pepper. And there's only been one plant. I can't believe all summer I only had one of these plants in my yard. And not only was there just one, but the one I had was getting blocked out by a humongous pepper plant that I planted right next to it. I've made some mistakes, you know. I absolutely love Serranos, and I'm so sorry to this plant for not giving it the best chances of living its wonderful life. Here we are at the chili red pepper plant, which was very prolific all summer long until I got the bright idea to cleanly pick off all of the small bundles of peppers that were on top, the same way that I did with all the other pepper plants. But on the chili pepper plant in particular, I've noticed that there wasn't the amount of recovery the other pepper plants had. I think what I did wrong was believe that all pepper plants produce at the same rate. It seems to be a very determinate type of plant to where when all the blooms come in, they all come in at the very same time, and then the next batch of blooms won't come in until the plant is to put out, 100 or so blooms again. Right behind the hot chilies, I actually have one of 3 hot cayenne pepper plants, which have been killing it all summer long. This was certainly one of the plants that benefited from that late season deep pruning that I had did. About a month ago, I had picked all of the pepper plants completely clean, and all 3 of the cayennes in the yard came back with a vengeance. Right next is a plant that did not do so well. Probably my only disappointment as a pepper plant was this purple bell pepper plant. At the beginning of the season, this plant certainly wasn't getting enough sun, but for the last 2 months, it's kind of been out here by itself, and it still hasn't put out, big bells the way you would think. So I think this plant in particular is going to do very well next year because I have to overwinter it. And last but not least is Pepper Daddy's sexiest plant. These banana peppers have been crushing it all summer. Certainly have been a standout in the yard, not only for their color, but for their actual sweetness. There's a lot of peppers that you get in the grocery stores that just aren't ripe enough. And when you grow your own sweet banana peppers, you actually get that full bit of sweetness. I've actually noticed that the peppers that have this dark stripe, I think it's like an over-ripened stripe, are actually a bit sweeter than the ones who don't have this stripe. So although you should be staying up on your harvest all the time, maybe keeping your banana peppers on the plant a bit longer isn't such a bad thing, because I have been loving these things all in my stir fries, my salsas. I've been doing quick ferments with them. And actually, I'm wondering what else I could possibly do with all these peppers, because I am certainly down to try it. Here I am on the next day, back in the sunlight, just to really say thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for helping this channel grow. Been getting more views than ever over the last couple of months, and I truly, truly appreciate it. My heart is so warm that people actually want to check out, my humble little Pittsburgh garden. This has certainly been a venture that I didn't want to capture on camera for a long time because it was just mine. But then it got to a point to where I feel like people would appreciate, just checking it out. And you certainly have. So until next time, I'll be here gardening.